Hello, everybody. A long time ago, in your grandparents' time, like 2015, then we used to send HTML over the internet. That was before JSON was invented. And today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I develop web pages in Enonic by sending HTML over the wire instead of sending JSON. It's like two different paradigms. The more front-end framework-based React or Vue or Svelte variant, which has been trending for the last years, and this 2015 old-school way of doing it, but with some bonus things added that I'll show you. Okay, so this is what I'm going to talk about today. I want as quickly as possible to get to the demo part because that's fun. We're going to look at code, because I know that's why you're here. You want to see code. You don't want to see slides. I'll tell you what progressive enhancement is. The technology that I think is very cool, which is part of this HTML of the wire, it's called Hotwire Turbo. I'm going to tell you some of the properties of Turbo, why it fits with my brain, and also with the progressive enhancement, how you're using that in development. And then for the demo section, I'm going to show you one of the pages I've been working on the last year, just a few things there, and some code I have that's just a demo for today. All right, so progressive enhancement. It is a concept where you build your web page in layers. So what you want to do is to have a very robust starting point. So your HTML is the first thing you do. You make very good, robust semantic HTML. And the web page that I make, I can serve that without any CSS or JavaScript, front-end JavaScript. And the user should be able to perform all their tasks using just the HTML. They're supposed to be able to read the page. It looks okay. It's not nice, but they're able to find the information they need. And if I have any interaction with forms, they're able to submit those forms and do all the user tasks that they need to do. And so that's the foundation. And part of this is like the properties in a web page that's important for me is like accessibility is number one. That's not what today is about. Number two for me is robustness. Like this should work in all cases and it should never fail because it's super annoying when you're not able to book your tickets or whatever because the web page fails. And the third is performance. That's like when you make it fun, when you make like it's supposed to be a joy to use this web page because everything is so quick and snappy and feels great. You know that I want to give you that feeling when you visit my web pages. Okay, so in the bottom, robust semantic HTML, and then on top of that I put CSS, and that just makes the experience better. I can use new CSS functionality, things that has come the last few years, but I usually build that in a way that it can always fall back to something that is underneath that works already. So that's why I do mobile first, because it's often an easier layout. It's linear often, and I use more old-fashioned CSS there so that it can always fall back to that. So even if you're in Internet Explorer and if you're a grandmother and you're in Internet Explorer and you visit this page, it can fall back to sort of the mobile simpler view first and show you that. So it can always fall back to something, so it keeps working, so the user can do their tasks always. And then the last layer I add on is the JavaScript layer, and that just improves it even more. So my forms that could submit here, they look nicer when I add some CSS. And here I can add something that can just refresh the page that you are on with a new submitted form. You don't have to do a whole page refresh to see what you, the thank you for submitting the form message. So you can add in layers on your page, always being able to fall back to the previous layer if something breaks. Like if you go into a tunnel when it's loading the JavaScript, the browser, then you lose connection, but you're still able to do your tasks because you can read the page. You don't need JavaScript to read the page. Okay, so that's the concept of progressive enhancement. Turbo. Okay, so this is sort of the main meat of what I'm talking about today. Turbo is a front-end library. It's made by the Ruby people, the Ruby on Rails people. So it's very common in the Ruby community. I've never been part of that community, but I found this online, and I found that it works really nice with Enonic XP. At least for me, it works nice. And it has 3 parts. The Turbo Drive, it is a router for your web page. So if you use a framework or a meta framework, when you're navigating on the page, it will sort of hijack the navigation, and it will load the correct data and show you the correct page. So what the Turbo Drive does, it hijacks every link on your page. So when you hover over it, it starts an AJAX request fetching the HTML page that it's going to show you. And when you click on it, it just swaps the DOM and puts in the new HTML. If there are new scripts that's being loaded in the header, it will diff that and sort of apply the new ones to the page. And this is much faster than just doing whole page reloads, because it's not just sending things or sending data over the network. That's part of the time you're waiting for. It's also, the browser has to parse that, and it has to instantiate, and has to do a whole bunch of things that takes time. But as long as, when you're navigating, if it's just fetching the HTML and swapping the DOM, it does so much less work in every navigation you do, and it's really fast because it starts fetching the page when the mouse comes over it. We'll look at that soon. Okay, the next part, frames. That's my favorite part. What frames, Turbo Frames, gives us is a custom element that you put on a page, and then you can do a partial refresh on just the stuff that is inside the Turbo Frame. So if I put the Turbo Frame element on my page, and if I press a link inside the Turbo Frame, it will just refresh whatever is in the Turbo Frame. So I can refresh parts of the page. And that also applies to forms. So when I have a form on my page and I press submit, it will just, the form will disappear, and a box saying thank you for submitting the form will pop up on the same page. You don't do any navigation. So it's a way to do partial page updates that is, how can I say it? It's like I don't have to write any front-end code to get this functionality. I just add a custom element to my HTML, and I've started. And also, since this is a progressive enhancement, if the JavaScript doesn't load, it's just a normal navigation, or form submit, and you're back. So you can still use the web page. Okay, the third part, streams. When you have Turbo Frames, you only update what is in that element, that frame. If you need to update something else, different places on the page, let's say you have a shopping cart and you press submit on the form and it says, yes, you want to buy this. And up in the corner, you want to update the shopping cart icon with a little 1 on it. You can use streams to do that. So that's because if you need something else on the page, you can do over a WebSocket. The web page creates a WebSocket to Enonic, and over that WebSocket, I can stream CRUD operations against the DOM. So I can do things like append this element to that element with that ID, or I can say delete that other element, or update this element. So I can do this type of CRUD operations against the DOM. I can do that on the user's own page, but I can also do that on every page of every user who is visiting this. I can stream operations over that WebSocket. So if you have a comment section on your web page, when someone submits a comment, I can just fire off that WebSocket message to everyone, and it'll pop up in their browser. Also, without me having to write any front-end code to sort of receive this. All this comes out of the box with the Turbo library. That's why it's cool. All right. So the properties, or the things that I like. It works as a progressive enhancement, so it can fall back to something that always works. App-like performance, navigating or submitting forms and everything. It's quick, so it feels like an app. I use HTML to transfer data. HTML is also a data format, funny enough. Yeah, the use cases for the Turbo things is the same use cases where you would hit the server to do something. If I want to flip a class, yeah, I would not write something that hits the server and returns back with a new class. I would just write some front-end JavaScript to flip that class. That's enough. Server-side templates. Some people use TimeLeaf. I use FreeMarker because I like that a lot. So I can use my favorite language or template language. Yeah, also, if you're doing stuff like this with jQuery, you know, you often end up building up the DOM with jQuery, and then that's sort of two templates you have to maintain. There's the real template on the server, and it's the jQueryfied thing you're doing in the browser in addition. So it's more, it's costs. This is less costly. Yeah, you can just configure it right into your HTML, your markup, because it's a custom element. And there are some good opportunities for caching here. So the booster application from Enonic is just fits me perfect with the way I'm building web pages, because I can get caching on the HTML that's being served out here, so it's even faster. But you can also have like a turbo frame that can lazy load its own content. That's part of what's built in. So if you have something that has to hit an API that takes a long time to answer, you can just serve the normal HTML page first, being served from Booster or from Cache or from your CDN. And then the thing that takes long time, it will sort of be lazy loaded into the HTML. So that's another feature of Turbo that you can use. Okay, demo time. Now's the fun part. Let me first show you a web page that I was working on earlier this year. So this is for a company that sells tools to other companies. And this has Turbo on it. So if let's open the network tab too and see what happens as I navigate. So if I want to navigate to one of the other pages, as I mouse over, now you can see it's already loaded in the page, and when I press it, it updates really quick. So the same with all the pages here. As soon as I press the button, it serves. So it's super quick. And part of that is the trick that it starts loading the page as the mouse comes over. If I turn off the JavaScript here now, and I navigate, yeah, it's not as fast as it was. It's okay, and it still works. That's the point. Things doesn't stop working even if I turn off the JavaScript. Let me show you one thing here. If I go to skjærende verktøy, here I have a turbo frame. It is, there it is. It's covering all of this part that's in the middle here. That's a turbo frame. The turbo frame covers the part. And what it would usually do is to sort of hijack the navigation inside it. So when I'm pressing these links, remember, right now I have JavaScript turned off. So when I press the link here, it does a whole page refresh, and it applies the filter so that the filter down here is just has one item in it. Okay, I'm back, and I'm turning on JavaScript again. And now as I put on the filter, it just updates this part of the web page where I am. And yeah, it's really easy. I just put the turbo frame in there, and it sort of makes the experience so much better. And it's very cheap to maintain. Yes. Okay, let me show you some code. Let me show you my demo application first. So I created a comment field part where I can write a comment. So I can also do likes here, and I can delete my comments. And also this is implemented without using any front-end JavaScript from my end. I just load the turbo, and everything else is implemented in the with the turbo frame and with the controller. Also, this has a, but let's look at the code first, and then I'll show you something cool. So this is my comment part. It has, here's the template for the part. It has a turbo frame around it. It has to have an ID so it knows which turbo frame to update. It lists out the comments, and I have a sub-template here, which renders out just the comment. And at the bottom, I have the form that submits a new comment. Okay, that's the markup, that's the HTML. Here's my controller for my part. Whoops, that's not supposed to happen. Come on. So I'm exporting all, so I can cover both get and post in the same function, because in the end, I end up rendering out sort of the same template with a new state. So when I'm doing like a post, it will create that post in the repo, in the database, and then it will do a new fetch, and then it will render out the whole, everything inside that page in a, with a new state applied. So that's why I'm happy with having the all function instead of separating out post and get. I could do that too, but I usually end up duplicating a bit of code then, so I don't want to do that. What's also happening here is I'm checking if this was a post method and the user is logged in, then I have some, there's 3 different forms on that page. There's a new comment, there's the delete comment, and there's the like comment. Those are the 3 forms, and I just have the form key to check which form is being submitted right now. If it's a new comment, then I want to save it to the database, and this is fun. I'll talk about this soon. Same with delete and like. And then after I do a form submit, it expects a redirect. So I will redirect to the same page with a get. So that's also part of how the form flow works with Turbo. Okay, let's talk about these guys here. This is the real snacks. Append comes from, oh, this was really small. Okay, we'll scroll up. This is where I want to be. Here, lib turbo streams. This is a library I made. It's on GitHub. It's open source. It's on Enonic Market. You can find it if you want it. And what it does is give me a wrapper around the WebSocket communication with the browser. So when I up here in my turbo frame, I have a, oops, it's small again. In my turbo frame, I have a turbo stream source, and I give it a service which is called turbo streams. And this is the service that the frontend will connect to be able to receive CRUD operations over the WebSocket. And here I have the different functions that I can do against the DOM. So I can replace things, I can append things, I can put something before something, or I can prefetch, prepend, remove things. So operations against the DOM I can do. So the fun part here, let's do the like. So for my, when someone sends in the form, there's a form around the like there. So it's a form, when I press the like, it's a form submit. It's like the submit button for that form. So it's a form submit. So when I do the like in that form, and it just refreshes it a little bit, I also call the replace function from the lib turbo streams. And it will send something over the WebSocket to everyone. So let's open 2 browsers next to each other and see. Oops. Log in with a different user here. Okay, so if I start liking something, you can see it updates in the other browser too, because it does the replace function over the WebSocket. So it will replace, it will send to every user on this page. I can also send to this one user specifically if I want to do that, but now it sends to every user on the page. It targets an ID, which is the ID of that div, and it will serve out some rendered HTML. And let's look at the WebSocket. Whoops. In the network. Okay, so let's see if there's stuff coming in. Okay, maybe not. Oh, this is probably also very small. Let's see if we can make this bigger too. Okay, can you see this? It's pretty small, but it's there. So this is the WebSocket that we're seeing. And what's coming over this is some markup. It's a turbo stream action replace. It has a target. It's the same parameters that I have here. It's the target, and it comes over the socket. It has the replace operation. And inside a template, it has the markup that it's supposed to be replacing. So that 10 there, that's being updated here. So when I send a new one, there's a new message coming with 11 and 12 here. So again, I didn't have to write any front-end JavaScript. It's just doing simple operations on every web page by calling these functions from the Turbo Streams library. Yes, that was the demo. Any questions?
Is the turbo frame like the same as like an outlet from like background neural?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I've not worked a lot with Next, so I'm not sure. But I don't think it's. I might be wrong. Maybe someone else knows better than me.
I can answer the better question. Yeah. And because I've had a lot of experience with Next, and a lot of parts are very similar, like streaming and preloading of the links. They exist on Next, and layouts also exist on Next, allowing you to update parts of the page. But if you're using your own markup template language, you're probably better off with Turbo, because with Next you're bound to React.
You said much about plus, but maybe some challenges for what you think it's like minus, what we must write and think about.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some things that make this a little bit difficult to add to your existing web page, which could be that if you have a lot of front-end JavaScript that has to be run when the page loads and be sort of attached itself to the DOM, you need to do the same every time you use Turbo to navigate on your pages. So when it fetches the new HTML and changes out the DOM, you also need to run again then your front-end JavaScript to attach to that DOM. So if you have an existing page, then you have to be very aware that it still has to work under those circumstances. For us, we implement our front-end JavaScript as custom elements, as web components, because they just have to be registered. And when they find those custom elements in the DOM, they will be instantiated automatically. So web components works very well in combination with Turbo. We also try to keep what we're doing very close to the web platform. So, web components is part of the web platform, and we use, CSS instead of SAS because it's close to the web platform, and it's become really good now. So we're happy with that. Another thing that you have to be aware of is that if you put a turbo frame on the page, it will hijack every link inside it by default. So if you have like a link on your page that is pointing to another page on the internet, that will try to open inside the turbo frame first. So what you want to do is to or what I often do is to say that like the default behavior inside the turbo frame is to just open it in a new page, and then for each place that I want specifically it to use the turbo frame for its intended purposes, then I mark them out specifically, and I find that's sort of safer, especially if you have content created by your editors. They can't think that there's a turbo frame there and something can happen to their links. They have to assume that their links will open on the full page. So these are some beginner mistakes that everyone has to try when they try to use this.